I'm talking into a cheap desk microphone that is not meant for this. It is meant for testing lines in a quiet room, not for whatever this has turned into. The room around me is a small switching station south of Mesa, near the edge where the suburbs thin out and the lots turn to gravel and chain link. Cinder block walls, a steel door, a rooftop rack that used to hold a dish and a weathered camera, 2 solar panels bolted down at a rough angle, not pretty, just practical. Inside, racks of gear that were never designed to be touched by anyone who did not have keys and a clipboard. Fiber trays, coke splitters, power supplies, battery strings in a ventilated cabinet, and a wall unit air conditioner that is dead quiet because there is no grid power to feed it. I work field service for a cable company. I drive a white van with dents in the bumper from places where people do not know how to back out of driveways. I do installs, trouble calls, line checks, amplifier swaps, and the kind of emergency repairs you do when somebody hit a pedestal with a truck. Most days it is simple. Customer is mad, the modem is blinking, I swap a connector, reset a box, clean up a line, move on. The switching station is not even my usual stop. I only know it because I've been sent here twice for backup power tests and once to replace a cooked fan in a cabinet. I never cared about it beyond getting the job done. Today it is my shelter, my battery, my last working wall outlet. This started before sunrise. I was parked off East Baseline Road, near a row of strip malls and a tire shop that always smells burned. I had a work order for noise on a line feeding a cluster of homes. The customer note said internet drops every afternoon. That is code for heat, bad connectors, and old cokes. I had my meter in my hand and I was looking at my phone when the first alert came through. Not a news alert, not a weather warning. It was the kind of message our company sends when they want every truck off the road and every crew checking backup systems. Something about space weather, a solar flare, a geomagnetic storm warning. That is not my world. I install internet for people who yell at me when their streaming stutters. I read it twice, then I laughed a little because it sounded like a movie setup. Then the second alert hit, and it was not from work. It was the emergency alert system on the phone, the one that overrides everything. Solar storm, possible power grid impacts, expect communication disruptions. I am not proud of what I did next. I did not finish the job. I did not knock on the customer's door and explain. I did not even close the pedestal lid neatly. I shoved the meter back in the van and I drove. I drove with that alert text burned into my head. And I kept telling myself it was going to be another one of those scares that gets people posting online and then it fizzles out. I told myself the grid is hardened, that this is not the 19th century, that we have procedures. I said all that while my hands were tight on the steering wheel and my eyes kept drifting up to the sky in the daytime, searching for something that would prove I was overreacting. The sky looked normal, blue, dry, clean, a few thin clouds far off. The first real sign was traffic lights. I hit a major intersection and the lights went dark. Not blinking red, not stuck, just dead. People hesitated, then they did the worst thing. They all decided the rules did not apply. Cars started pushing through in clumps, horns blaring, drivers leaning out windows yelling. A city runs on timing. When that timing drops out, it turns into negotiation and aggression fast. I watched one SUV cut across 3 lanes to force a gap. I watched a delivery van lock up brakes and miss a minivan by a few feet. I did not stop. I kept moving, and every intersection after that got worse. My van radio still worked for a bit. Work channel chatter, people asking what was going on, dispatch trying to act calm, a supervisor telling everybody to head to assigned hubs and check generators. Somebody else said they lost cell service already. Somebody said their truck dash was throwing errors. I started thinking about what a geomagnetic storm actually does. Not from school, but from those random articles you scroll past. It does not cook you. It does not burn the air. It messes with the big stuff. Long lines. Transformers. Anything that depends on clean timing signals and stable voltage. It throws the grid into a fight with physics. I chose this switching station because it had solar. That sounds smarter than it was. I only remembered it because the last time I was here, the battery cabinet was new, and the little solar inverter display was bright and smug, showing charge rate and load. It was a small, off-grid setup designed to keep critical cabinets alive long enough for a generator trailer to show up. It was never meant to be a standalone lifeboat. Still, it was more than my van could give me. My van had a starter battery and a tool inverter that whines and overheats if you try to run real load on it. The gate was locked. It is always locked. I had keys in my bag, and for once, they mattered. I parked inside, killed the engine, and the sudden quiet felt wrong. No hum from streetlights, no distant air conditioners, no steady background of a living city. Just wind across gravel, and a dog barking somewhere far off, then stopping. I unlocked the building and stepped into the cool dark. Not air-conditioned cool, just shaded concrete cool. The racks were running on battery. I heard fans, a thin, steady sound. That sound has never made me feel safer before today. I checked the inverter first. The display was on. That mattered. It showed input from solar at a low rate because the sun was still climbing. It showed the battery bank at a charge level that looked decent. It showed load. The load was higher than normal, and that worried me, but I did not have time to be picky. I walked to the back cabinet where we keep a small emergency kit. This is not a public shelter. Nobody designed it for comfort. The kit had water bottles, a basic first aid pack, a few energy bars, and a hand crank flashlight that always breaks. There was also a portable two-way radio in a drawer. Company issue for certain sites. Not high power, but a start. I had my own small scanner in the van too, something I use sometimes when I'm working near airports because it helps me understand when a loud aircraft overhead is normal traffic or something odd. I grabbed that. I grabbed spare batteries. I grabbed a coil of Cokes and a bag of connectors because that is what my hands reach for when I'm stressed. Tools are comfort. By mid-morning, the phone was a brick. Not dead, just useless. The screen lit, but nothing loaded. No calls went through, no texts. The little spinning icon stayed spinning until the battery drained. I turned it off and put it in my pocket anyway. Habit. The work radio went weird next. It did not cut off clean. It started picking up fragments, broken syllables. Then it went silent for long stretches. Then it would cough back to life with some other crew yelling about a crash on the freeway. I sat on the concrete floor with my back against a rack, and I listened, trying to build a picture of what was happening beyond my cinder block walls. At around noon, I heard the first transformer fail, not close enough to see, close enough to hear. It was a sharp crack followed by a low rushing sound that I felt in my teeth more than my ears. The racks around me stayed on because they were on battery and inverter. Somewhere in the distance, a section of the grid died hard. After that, the horizon started to change. Not the sky, the horizon line. Smoke plumes, thin at first, then wider. Phoenix is huge, and smoke has space to spread. At first it looked isolated, then it multiplied. There is a detail people miss when they talk about solar storms. The danger is not one dramatic moment. It is cascading failures. Systems that assume other systems are stable. Protection equipment that trips, then fails to reset. Control rooms that rely on accurate timing signals. When those timing signals wobble, the grid does not know what time it is. That sounds childish, but it is real. The grid uses synchronized timing to balance load and generation. Satellites help that timing. When satellites are sick or unreachable, a lot of gear goes into fallback modes. Some of it does not like that. I know this because I spent the first afternoon reading the printed binder on the wall. Every critical site has one. Most of it is lockout procedures, contact lists, diagrams, and a section about backup power. There was also a page about geomagnetic disturbance. It was written in dull corporate language, but the point was clear. Expect induced currents on long conductors. Expect protective trips. Expect transformer heating. Expect communication interruptions. It told technicians to isolate non-essential loads, to protect battery reserve, and to prepare for extended outage. Reading it did not calm me. It just made the fear more organized. I decided I needed to talk out loud, not for comfort, for function. A switching station has gear that can push signal down coax and fiber. But the neighborhood nodes were down, the amplifiers in the street had no power, and the head end was a black box miles away. My cable tools were not going to bring the internet back. I did have one thing, though, a portable transceiver I bought years ago, mostly for camping and storms. I keep it in the van with my recovery straps and a dusty sleeping bag. I am licensed for it. I had not used it in months. I pulled it out, checked the battery, and I built a quick antenna out of coax and a metal rack bracket. It was ugly. It was functional. I am not going to say names or channels or any of that. It does not matter. What matters is that I found a space where people were already talking in broken bursts. Not a crowd, a few scattered voices, people checking if anyone else could hear. People trying to locate family. Someone from a rural area talking about their well pump not running. Someone else saying they saw a plane drop low and then disappear behind buildings. I listened for a long time before I spoke. When I finally pushed the button, my voice sounded thin and wrong in my own ears. I said my name. I said I was in a switching station with solar and batteries. I said I could listen for messages and repeat them. I said I was not law enforcement, not the government, not a hero. I said if you were nearby and you could hear me, you should not come here unless you had no other choice, because if a crowd shows up, this place becomes a target. I hated saying that, but I meant it. A small building with power is a magnet. It does not matter if it is a hospital or a service closet. Power means water, means light, means phone charging, means control. People will do stupid things for control. The first person who kept coming back on the air, the first voice that became a real person to me, was a woman named Maya Ellison. She said her full name, and then she laughed once, not happy, more disbelief. She said she was a nurse in Phoenix, emergency department, and she had come in for a day shift, and then everything started failing one layer at a time.
I am talking on a handheld that security keeps for drills. I never use it. I know you said not to say channels, so I am not. I am just saying I am here. I am real, and I am trying to hold on to something that makes sense. We lost the electronic chart system first. It just froze. Then it kicked everyone out. The backup generator kicked on for a while. Then it started surging. We have staff who know the generator, and they were yelling in the hallway because the automatic transfer switch kept flipping. The lights kept going bright, then dim. Monitors started alarming for no reason. Then they stopped alarming at all. The ventilators, the pumps, anything that needs stable power started acting stupid. We moved patients closer to the nurse station so we could watch chest rise and fall without trusting the machines. We started writing on paper, and half the staff did not even know where the paper forms were because nobody has used them in years. We have people coming in with crash injuries from intersections with dead lights. We have people coming in with burns from house fires because their smoke alarms did not chirp, and they did not smell it until the curtains were already gone. We have people coming in who are not hurt, but they are out of their minds because their phone is dead and they cannot find their kids. And the worst part is the air. We can smell smoke in the building even with the doors closed. The city is burning in spots. I am telling you that straight. This is not one fire, this is many.
I asked her where she was exactly, but I kept it general. She named the area. I'm not repeating that on air because I do not want people piling onto her hospital. She did not need more chaos. She needed supplies, security, and time. I asked her what they needed most. She said batteries, flashlights, oxygen cylinders, water. She said people kept trying to use the elevators and getting trapped when the power cut mid-travel. She said she saw a surgeon carrying a tray by hand up 3 flights because nobody trusted the lift. She said staff were using their own phones for light until the batteries died. I told her I had solar, and I could charge batteries if someone brought them, but I also told her it was risky. She understood. Her voice stayed steady, but the content was not steady. She kept circling back to one thing. Time. She said the wall clocks were wrong. She said their phones were wrong. She said the hospital's time server was wrong. She said half the staff were arguing about whether it was an early afternoon or late afternoon because nobody trusted anything that used a network. That sounded small until I thought about medication timing, shift changes, how people anchor themselves. If you cannot agree what time it is, you cannot coordinate. That time problem hit me too. My watch is an old analog that I keep because it does not care about satellites. It was still moving. My van clock blinked nonsense. The transceiver had a digital clock that drifted because it is cheap. The world was still spinning, still bright, still hot. But our shared schedule was falling apart. People talk about civilization failing in big dramatic terms. It can fail in small, ugly ways too. If you cannot tell someone meet me at 5, and then every plan becomes guesswork. Later that afternoon, I picked up an aircraft voice, not a clear one. Broken, strained, repeating phrases. The kind of voice you hear in documentaries right before something goes wrong. I had the scanner on, sweeping. I was not trying to eavesdrop for entertainment. I was trying to understand what was happening over my head. The voice cut through, and it made me sit up.
This is Mark Dwyer. I am a first officer on a commercial flight coming in from the east, and I do not know who is even receiving this anymore. We lost satellite navigation updates first. The flight management system started throwing flags. We still have inertial reference. We still have basic radio navigation, but the data is degrading, and the ground stations are not responding the way they should. We tried to contact approach, and we got nothing but carrier for a while. Then we got half a transmission that did not match the airport we were calling. We have passengers who can see smoke columns through the windows, and they are filming with dead phones, because the screens still work even when the network does not. We have been told by another aircraft that the field might be dark. I am telling you, a major airport with no runway lights, no tower, no radar updates. That is not something this system is built to handle at scale. We are not the only plane up here. We can see traffic. We can see contrails. We can see people still flying who should be on the ground right now. We are trying to divert, but every option depends on fuel and ground support. I can fly a plane without satellites. I can fly a plane without autopilot. I cannot refuel without a working pump. And I cannot put 150 people onto a dark runway without knowing if there is a truck stalled across it. If you are on the ground, and you are hearing me, and you have any way to reach an airport operations crew, tell them to clear the runways and get any portable lights they can. Tell them to put vehicles at the thresholds. Tell them to use flares if they have to. I am not being dramatic. I am being direct.
He kept talking for a while, and I did not interrupt. He gave his aircraft type. He gave his rough location without coordinates, using landmarks. He sounded tired and angry and focused. I wanted to tell him I was just one guy in a concrete box. I wanted to tell him I could not call the airport. My phone did nothing. My work radio was dead. The only reason I could hear him was because my scanner had its own battery and the air still carries voices even when networks are dead. I did the one thing I could do. I repeated his message into the space where people were listening. I said there was an aircraft overhead asking for ground crews to clear runways and mark them. I said if anyone has eyes on an airfield, even a small one, move vehicles off the pavement, keep people from running onto the runway. And if you have any battery-powered lights, point them along the edges. I did not know if it helped. I hated not knowing. That night, the sky over Phoenix glowed in places where it should not. I am not talking about auroras. I am not turning this into that. I am talking about fires reflecting off haze and smoke. The dull orange wash you get when a city is burning in pockets and the power is out, so the usual scattered light is gone. I stepped outside the building twice, quick, to check the solar panels and feel the air. The heat held on longer than normal because the wind was still. Somewhere far off I heard a steady siren that did not stop. Eventually it cut out, then started again, then cut out. That told me the siren system had power problems too. I slept in my van for a couple of hours with the windows cracked. I did not sleep deep. Every sound made me sit up. Gravel crunch, a distant engine, voices. The station is near a service road, not a neighborhood street. That helps, but it does not make you invisible. People who are desperate wander. People who are curious wander. People who want to take wander. Near midnight, someone tried the gate. I heard the rattle. I stayed still. I did not turn on a light. I did not yell. I watched through the windshield. 2 figures, one tall, one shorter. They shook the gate again. Then they walked along the fence line, testing. I slid my hand under the seat and wrapped fingers around the grip of a 12 gauge I keep for snakes and for the parts of Arizona where you get surprised by humans more than wildlife. I did not point it. I did not rack it. I waited. After a few minutes, they left. I stayed awake until dawn. In the morning, my solar input went up. The inverter display looked healthier. Batteries were still above half. That became my fuel gauge, not gasoline, stored sunlight. I turned my transmissions into a routine because routine keeps people sane. I told anyone listening that I would monitor for the first 10 minutes of every hour, then I would transmit updates for the next 10, then I would go silent. Silence saves power. Silence also keeps you hidden. A constant signal is a beacon. Maya came back mid-morning. Her voice sounded different, drier. She said they had moved patients into hallways because rooms were too hot with no air conditioning. She said the generator failed completely at one point, then came back, then failed again. She said they were rationing oxygen. She said they were using manual blood pressure cuffs and counting breaths because the electronic monitors were unreliable. She said the emergency department doors kept getting forced by people who heard hospital and thought it meant safety and supplies.
I am telling you what it looks like from inside. It looks like a place designed for normal emergencies, being pushed past the point where the rules work. We have families standing in the parking lot because they drove here and now they cannot get back out. We have security trying to keep lanes open for ambulances, but the ambulances are not coming in the usual pattern. Some are stuck in traffic, some ran out of fuel, some cannot get dispatch on the radio. We have staff who are supposed to be off shift still here because they cannot drive home safely and they cannot contact anyone to pick them up. We have people arguing about the time, and I know that sounds stupid, but I have doctors asking me, when was the last dose? And I answer with a guess, and I hate myself for guessing. We started using my analog wristwatch as the unit standard at my station. We literally held it up and said, "This is the time for this hallway. That is where we are."
That hit me hard because it was the most normal thing in all this. A nurse using her wristwatch to anchor a hospital schedule. No software, no network, no cloud. Just a watch and a human saying, "This is what we agree on." A few hours after Maya, another voice entered my small circle, a deputy named Lena Torres. She said she was with a county sheriff's office in Pinal County, south and southeast of Phoenix. She said she got on the air because their dispatch center was dark, and their mobile data terminals were dead, and their normal radio repeaters were unreliable. She sounded tired but controlled, the way you get when you have already seen too many bad scenes, and you are still upright because you do not have a choice.
My name is Lena Torres. I am a deputy. I am using a patrol handheld with a spare battery. I am not going to give my exact location because I am not trying to invite anyone to come find me. I will say I have been moving between Apache Junction, Queen Creek, and the rural roads where the pavement ends and people think rules stop. The lights went out and the wreck started immediately. I have seen 3 major collisions from people running dead intersections at speed. I have seen a fuel tanker stuck at an angle in a ditch because the driver could not get a signal from anyone and tried to take a side road. I have seen people trying to siphon gas in broad daylight without even hiding it because they think there is no consequence now. I have also seen decent people directing traffic with orange vests and flashlights. I want to say that too. This is not all monsters. This is a mix. We were told in training about solar storms and grid events. It was a slide in a classroom. It did not feel real. What feels real is the way everything that depends on timing and power falls apart together. The gas stations cannot pump. The stores cannot ring up. The water systems start losing pressure. People start driving to places they think have supplies. and they clog the roads that emergency vehicles need. I have tried to keep one thing clear in my area. If you are in a house, stay there. If you have water, keep it. If you have a pool, treat that water as a resource, but do not drink it without filtering and disinfecting. If you have a generator, do not run it in a garage. I have already seen one family with carbon monoxide poisoning from a generator placed wrong. They survived because a neighbor noticed everyone went quiet. That neighbor had no phone service. They ran next door and kicked the door in. That is where we are.
I asked Lena what she needed. She did not ask for miracles. She asked for information. She asked if I had heard anything about state response, National Guard, any organized shelter. I had nothing solid. I told her that. I told her rumors are poison. She agreed fast. She said rumors were causing people to drive into bad situations. Someone heard there was fuel at a certain truck stop, then 100 cars arrived and there was no fuel, and then there was violence. This is the part where I need to say something plain about the voices in the static. People want that to mean something. People want mystery because mystery feels organized. Random failure feels insulting. I started hearing it on the second night. At first it sounded like digital noise, chopped syllables, then something that could have been language but did not match English or Spanish or anything I recognized. It came in short bursts, then vanished. Some listeners on the air started whispering that it sounded not human. That is where panic grows legs. So I tested it. I did not treat it as ghosts, I treated it as interference. I changed antennas. I changed power levels. I listened on different bands. I moved the Cokes away from the rack. I wrote down the times it happened using my analog watch as reference, and I checked whether it lined up with solar input fluctuations on the inverter display. There was a pattern. The bursts increased when the ionosphere was disturbed, when normal signals were bending and skipping. That is a real thing. A solar storm changes the behavior of the upper atmosphere. It can make distant transmissions travel farther. It can distort them. It can layer signals on top of each other. If you have never listened to radio during a big disturbance, it can sound wrong. It can sound unnatural. That does not mean it is supernatural. It means physics is messy. Still, I'm not going to lie. One of those bursts made the hair on my arms stand up. Not from fear, from pure confusion. It sounded structured. It sounded intentional. It was not just modem squeal. It had rhythm and repetition. I recorded it on a little handheld recorder I use for work notes sometimes. I played it back and it still sounded the same. I asked Maya if she heard it. She said yes. She said someone in their security office heard it too and said it sounded military. Lena said she heard it once and it cut out right after. My best guess, and I'm labeling it a guess, is that we were catching fragments of encrypted transmissions. Maybe aviation, maybe military, maybe international. The world had gone electrically loud. The normal walls between signals were thinner. A signal that would normally stay in its lane was bleeding into ours. People who are not used to hearing encryption think it is alien language. They think it is spirits. They think it is the end in a special way. I do not have room for special. I have room for batteries and water and hard choices. On the third day, heat became the enemy. Arizona does not forgive a dead grid. Air conditioning goes off and the inside of a house turns into a box that holds heat. People who plan for storms plan for cold. They did not plan for this. I started pushing basic advice between check-ins. Stay low in the house, close blinds, use damp cloth on skin if you have water. Do not waste water doing laundry. If you have a vehicle with fuel, do not idle it for comfort in a closed garage. Park it outside if you must run it. Better yet, do not run it at all unless you are moving to a safer place. Fuel is time. Lena came back with a harder voice. She said there were fires spreading in dry brush where power lines had snapped and thrown sparks. She said fire crews were overwhelmed because water pressure was dropping in some zones and because traffic was blocking response routes. She said she and 2 other deputies had started using their vehicles as barricades at certain intersections, not to control every road, just to keep one corridor clear for emergency use. She asked if I could repeat that corridor info to anyone in the area. I did, careful, broad, not giving specifics that would invite looters. Mark came back once more, and I did not expect it. His voice was weaker. He said they landed at a smaller field. He said they used vehicle headlights and handheld lights from ground crew. He said passengers stayed on board for hours because nobody could process them. He said some people tried to walk off the airfield and security had to physically block them because there were fires nearby and no way to track who was where. He said he watched another aircraft attempt an approach and pull up at the last second because the runway had debris. He said if the solar storm persisted, aviation would shut down not from lack of pilots, from lack of ground infrastructure.
I am on the ground. I am alive. I am saying that because I do not know if I will have another chance. We landed with minimal support. The tower was dark. The runway lights were dark. We had a truck at one end flashing lights, and a line of vehicles angled along the edge with headlights pointing toward the pavement. It worked enough. It was still one of the worst things I have done in a cockpit, because the margin was thin and the information was stale. People assume pilots have magic. We do not. We have procedures and systems. When the systems fail, we become humans making choices with limited data. That is what happened. If anyone is hearing this and you have family in the air, do not assume the worst immediately. Many crews will land. Many will divert. Some will not. I cannot sugarcoat that. I am not saying this to scare you. I am saying it so you stop making up stories in your head. The truth is bad enough.
By then I was running my switching station as a quiet relay, and I was also guarding it. I did not open the gate for anyone. I did not step outside unless I had to. I kept my transmission short and scheduled. I kept the solar panels clean with a rag because dust cuts output, and output is life. I turned off non-essential rack load by pulling breakers inside the cabinet, isolating anything that did not need to run. It felt wrong cutting power to equipment that had been installed for a reason, but this was not normal operation. This was triage. On the fourth night, the fence line got tested again. More people this time. I heard voices, then a kick against the gate. They did not have bolt cutters. They had anger and impatience. I stayed quiet. I did not answer. I moved deeper into the building and killed the one indicator light that shone through the vent slats. I sat on the floor with the 12 gauge across my lap and I listened. They argued. Then they left. They might come back with tools. They might bring more people. The fact that they found this place at all told me word was spreading. Maya told me their hospital had started moving certain patients out because they could not maintain care. She said they were setting up a shaded triage area in a parking garage because it was cooler. She said they were using handwritten tags. She said staff were breaking down, not crying, just shutting down and staring because the workload never stopped and the normal support systems were gone. She said one of their doctors had to decide which patient got the last working oxygen concentrator. She did not tell me details. She did not need to. I could hear what that did to her voice. Lena told me she had started sleeping in her patrol vehicle with the windows cracked, parked in a place where she could see both directions on a rural road. She said the county jail generator had failed for a while, and they had to make fast decisions to prevent a disaster. She said they were trying to keep prisoners alive, not because they loved them, because letting a jail turn into a death pit would ripple through everything. She said people were trying to break into pharmacies. She said they were trying to stop that without becoming an occupying army. I kept thinking about my role in all this. I am not a first responder. I am not trained to lead a crowd. I'm a guy who knows Koch's loss and signal levels and how to keep batteries from dying. Still, when the big systems fall, small systems become valuable. A solar panel on a roof becomes a power plant. A handheld radio becomes a newsroom. A switching station becomes a fort. That is a dangerous transition because it pushes ordinary people into positions where others will test them. On the fifth day, the transmissions changed. Less chatter. More quiet. That might sound good, but it is not. It means batteries are dying. It means people gave up. It means people moved on. I heard one burst from a person who sounded young, voice shaking, trying to ask for directions to a shelter. I did not answer with false certainty. I told them I did not know. I told them to stay off highways, to avoid big crowds, to find shade, and to conserve water. They did not respond again. I also heard, faint and clipped, the strange bursts again, the ones people called voices. This time I listened longer, and I noticed something I had missed. The timing of the bursts lined up with periods when my own transmissions got scratchy, when the ionosphere was changing. That reinforced my suspicion. Interference, propagation shifts, overlapping signals from far away. Not spirits, not aliens, not a hidden message meant for me. The brain wants patterns. In a crisis, the brain creates them fast. I am fighting that tendency in myself every hour. I'm going to say something that might make people angry. If you are hearing this and you are waiting for the government to flip a switch and restore normal, stop waiting in place with your fridge full of thawing meat and your phone plugged into a dead wall. Make plans that work without rescue. That does not mean panic. It means practical. Water first. Shade, security. Community with people you trust. Not crowds, not rumors. I do not know when the grid comes back. A geomagnetic storm can last hours. It can also slam the system again and again. If enough big transformers cook, replacement is not quick. Those units are custom. They are heavy. They move by rail and special trucks. They are not stacked in a warehouse in the desert waiting for this day. Some parts of the grid will recover, some will stay dark. That is my honest assessment based on what I know, not what I hope. I said that out loud and I meant it, but I also know what happens when people hear it. They either shut down or they sprint into bad decisions. I can hear it in the silence after my words. Dead air, a long pause, then someone keys up too fast and starts talking over themselves. I am going to keep this grounded. No hero stuff, no secret answers. Just what is happening and what I am doing about it minute by minute. Because right now a decent plan is worth more than a loud opinion. It is mid-afternoon on what I think is day 5, but day 5 is already a loose concept. My analog watch says a little after 2. The sun angle matches that. Heat is pushing through the concrete walls. The battery cabinet fan is running harder. And that matters because heat kills batteries faster than people realize. Every degree inside that cabinet eats lifespan. I walk the building and I do a load audit again. I do it the way I do it at work. Step by step. What is essential? What is not? I flip off one of the rack power strips feeding a redundant module that was never meant to be critical. The fans spin down. The inverter load drops a little. Small win. I keep thinking about water. Not as an abstract stay hydrated thing. I mean actual gallons. And where they come from. The switching station has no running water. There is no sink, no toilet. I have a few bottles. A couple gallons I grabbed from my van and that is it. There is a concrete pad outside with a drainage slope, but no catchment. No rain in the forecast. Even if there was, a solar storm does not bring clouds. It just brings failure. I have been rationing hard. Small sips, dry mouth all day, less talking when I can. But I'm doing a radio relay, and talking is the job now. That means I need a resupply run. Not for comfort, for survival. I wrestle with it for an hour. The safe decision is to stay inside and hope someone brings water. The realistic decision is that nobody is coming to rescue a switching station technician they do not even know exists. So I plan a short run. In and out, no wandering, no shopping. A hit on one specific place, and back. I choose a maintenance yard I know in Mesa, off a service road near a cluster of utility buildings. The reason is simple. Those yards sometimes have palletized bottled water for crews. They sometimes have vending machines. They sometimes have a cooler for the foreman. Even if it is stripped, there might be a hose bib with pressure, maybe. If the water system still has pressure. Big, maybe. Before I leave, I do 2 things. I hide signs of life. I kill any exterior indicator light. I cover the small vent slats with a dark cloth from my tool bag so the inside glow does not leak at night. Then I booby trap. Not in a violent way, in a noise way. I hang a line of metal washers on a string inside the gate so if someone pushes it, it jingles. I place a loose gravel strip and a couple empty cans near the side fence where someone might climb. It is not a fortress. It is an early warning system. I also leave a written note taped inside the building, big letters, for myself and for anyone who might find this place after. It says, "Solar power inside, do not destroy panels, batteries limited. Take only what you need." I do not know if that note will do anything, but it is honest. I step out in the van and I feel the sun hit my face and neck, and it is a reminder that the world is still physically normal. Same dry air, same desert smell, same sharp light. It is the systems that are gone. That is what makes it so disorienting. The first mile is quiet. Then the road bends and I see movement. Cars stopped in a messy line near an intersection. No lights. People standing in the street, arms out, trying to direct traffic. A guy with a reflective vest and a baseball cap is waving cars through in clumps. It is the closest thing to order I have seen in days. I slow down and follow the signals. Nobody is smiling. Nobody is making eye contact. Everyone looks tired and pissed and scared in that specific way where they do not want to admit it. A few blocks later, I pass a grocery store parking lot that looks like a campsite. Cars parked crooked, hoods up, people sitting in shade under open hatchbacks. Someone has a cardboard sign that says "Water" in thick marker. A kid is crying. An older man is yelling at someone near a cart. I do not stop. I cannot be the guy who stops and gives away the last of his water on day 5 when he has to drive back to his own lifeline. That sounds cold. It is not cold. It is triage. I keep the van windows up, not because I'm afraid of air, because I do not want people hearing a working engine and deciding I'm a moving resource. As I get closer to the maintenance yard, I hear a low roar in the distance. It is not thunder. It is not a jet. It is the sound of a large fire eating something. That constant rushing sound. Then I see it. A warehouse district with a smoke column rising, thick and dark. It is not one building. It is multiple. There are little flickers at the base of the smoke that tell me it is still active. No fire trucks, no visible response, just fire doing its job. I make a choice. I take the side street even if it is slower. The side street has more blind corners, more places for someone to step into the road, but it keeps me away from the smoke area and the crowd that gathers around it. Crowds form around disaster, some to help, many to steal. I reach the maintenance yard gate. It is locked. Of course it is. But it is a chain with a padlock, not a hardened gate. I have bolt cutters in the van because field techs carry tools that become useful in weird ways. I stare at the lock for a full 10 seconds. This is the line between civilized and post. If I cut this, I am committing a crime in normal time. In this time, it might be the right decision. I decide not to cut it yet. I walk the perimeter first. I find a spot where the fence is bowed and someone has already been there. The chain link is bent and the metal ties are twisted. Somebody made a gap and then left. That tells me 2 things. 1, this place has been hit. 2, the easy resources might be gone, but maybe not everything. I slide through the gap and I keep my head down. The yard smells of oil and dust and sun-baked rubber. I hear flies, real flies. Not the fake buzz of dead stuff people say. Just flies because Arizona has flies and trash now sits in heat. The first building door is open. Inside it is dark. I do not go in. I am not walking into a dark room in a crisis without a reason. I move to the break area outside. There is a vending machine. The screen is dead. I smack it once out of instinct, then I stop myself. Wasted energy. I check a cooler. Empty. I check the pallet spot where water sometimes sits. Nothing. I feel that tight frustration rise and I force it down. Not because emotions are bad, but because emotions make you rush. Rushing gets you hurt. I hear footsteps and I freeze. Not a scrape, not a distant echo. Actual footsteps on gravel. Someone is in the yard with me. I slide behind a utility trailer and I peek around. 2 men, one carrying a metal bar, one with a backpack. They are moving with purpose, not random wandering. They are looking into vehicles, popping doors, checking compartments, not panicked, methodical. I stay still, I keep the 12 gauge low. I do not point it, I do not want a confrontation. A gun is not a magic wand. It is a loud negotiation with consequences and verjährst. The men keep moving away from me. I wait until they're at the far end of the yard, then I back out the way I came in. No water, no loot. Just a reminder that everywhere has eyes now. I am driving back when Lena comes through on the air, her voice urgent. I cannot answer while driving safely, but I listen.
I need anyone who can hear to stop spreading the rumor about the dam breaking. I am saying it blunt. I have been to the canal gates. There is no dam failure. There is no wall of water coming. People are driving like idiots because they think they have to run, and they are crashing and blocking roads that fire crews need. The water system is stressed, yes. The canal pumps are affected, yes. But there is no flood wave. Stop telling people that. If you heard it from a neighbor, tell them to shut up. That rumor will get someone killed.
That is exactly what I mean about rumor poison. People want one big story to explain chaos. So they invent one. The dam broke rumor gives them an excuse to flee. It gives them a target for their fear. It also turns roads into death traps. I get back to the switching station by late afternoon. My washer string at the gate is still hanging. No jingle, no sign someone pushed it. The cans by the fence are still where I left them. That is relief. It is also a warning. It will not stay that way forever. Inside, the batteries are lower than I like. The solar was feeding while I was gone, but the racks have been running. Heat increases load. The inverter display is telling me a story. The story is, you cannot leave this place often because every hour away is an hour of vulnerability and power drain without your management. I drink a measured amount of water and I sit down on the concrete floor and I key up. I tell anyone listening I did a run, and the maintenance yard was stripped. I repeat Lena's warning about the dam rumor. I ask anyone with reliable water access to share general info, not addresses, but what sources still work. Wells, community taps, any place with gravity-fed storage. An hour later, a new voice comes in. A man named Cole Ramirez. He says he is a lineman contractor, not for my company, for power. He says he has been listening quietly and he finally decided to talk because what he is seeing matters.
My name is Cole Ramirez. I am a contract lineman out of Tucson. I am up north right now with a crew that got stuck when this hit. We are not moving as a unit because we cannot get dispatch or fuel support. We are working off paper maps and dead radios. I am telling you what I know without pretending I know everything. This event did not just flip the lights off, it damaged equipment. I have seen a substation with transformer oil vented and sprayed because the protective gear did not catch it fast enough. I have seen insulators cracked. I have seen weird induced currents doing things on lines that are supposed to be dead. We have to test everything twice because the assumptions are gone. People keep saying the grid will come back in a day. Some parts might. Some parts will not for a long time. A big transformer is not a part you swap from a shelf. It is a months-long lead time. Even if you have one ready, you have to move it. And moving it requires roads, permits, escorts, fuel, and cranes. You do not have that in a normal week without planning. Right now, you have wrecks blocking highways and people trying to steal copper off poles. I am not saying that to scare anyone. I am saying it because if you still have water pressure and you still have a working refrigerator from a small generator, treat that as temporary luck and plan for when it ends.
Cole's voice is calm in the way skilled tradespeople get when they are focused on a job. He does not dramatize. He does not speculate. That makes him more frightening than the panicked callers. Maya comes back after Cole and says their hospital lost municipal water pressure for an hour. Then it came back weak. She said they had to stop running certain equipment because cooling water was unreliable. She said they started filling every available container with water whenever pressure returned. That is what you do when the tap becomes a rumor.
I want to tell you something that I do not want to tell you, because it is the kind of thing people turn into a story, and then it spreads wrong. There are people here who are not sick, not injured, who came because they thought the hospital would have power. They thought we would be a charging station. We cannot be. We are barely keeping the critical stuff alive, so we started turning people away. That sounds cruel until you watch staff collapse because they have been carrying this place with no sleep. We still treat emergencies. We still take crash victims. But if you come here with a dead phone and a temper, you are not a patient. You are a threat. That is where we are.
I hate hearing that because it means the last formal safety net is tearing. Hospitals are the anchor point people trust. If they start closing doors, the public mood flips. That night, the wind shifts and brings smoke closer. It seeps into the switching station through tiny gaps in the door frame. Not thick enough to choke, thick enough to taste. It carries the smell of plastic and treated wood, and that is the smell of homes. I go outside after sunset with a flashlight covered by my hand so it is a narrow beam. I look at the horizon and I count new glow spots. There are more than yesterday. Some are far. Some are closer. A few are moving, which tells me brush fires driven by wind. I hear a low pulsing sound in the distance. Not sirens, not engines. It takes me a moment to place it. It is a helicopter. But it is not a normal helicopter sound. It is uneven. It is searching. It fades, then grows, then fades again. I go back inside and I listen on the scanner. I catch fragments. A pilot talking about low fuel, someone else talking about losing navigation reliability, a request for visual landmarks, then static. The next morning, a new catastrophe arrives in a quiet way. My inverter throws a fault for a split second. The display flashes, then recovers. That is not supposed to happen. I check connections. I check the battery voltage. I check temperature. Everything looks borderline, but not catastrophic. Still, that blip tells me the equipment is stressed. Solar inverters hate heat. They hate unstable loads. They hate weird frequency. Even off-grid, they depend on internal timing. If this solar storm is still messing with the electromagnetic environment, maybe it is pushing even small electronics into strange behavior. I make a decision I did not want to make. I reduce my transmit schedule. I cut it to the top of every other hour. That means less information flow, but it also means more chance the station stays alive for days instead of dying tonight. This is the brutal math now. Communication versus endurance. When I announce that change, someone breaks in angry. A man I do not know. He is shouting. He says people need updates. He says I am hoarding power. He says I have no right. His voice is hot and reckless. I answer him calm. I tell him the battery bank is finite. I tell him solar does not charge at night. I tell him I am not a public utility. I tell him if he wants a constant broadcast, he needs to build his own power source. I tell him anger does not create electricity. Then I go silent. That exchange sits in my gut because it reveals the next stage. People are not just scared. They are starting to resent anyone who still has a working thing. They will moralize it. They will call it hoarding. They will call it selfish. Sometimes it is selfish. Sometimes it is just survival. The line between those is going to get blurry and ugly. Around midday, Cole comes back with a warning. He says crews are seeing theft escalate. People cutting ground straps. People taking copper. People tampering with substation fences. He says that does not just slow repairs, it can kill the thieves and it can damage equipment further. He says he saw one man get knocked down by an arc flash because he tried to cut something that still had induced voltage. He does not describe injuries. He just says the man did not get up.
If you are thinking about stealing wire because you think it is easy money, stop. You are not stealing from a faceless company right now. You are stealing from your own future. Every line you cut is a day longer in the dark. Also, the storm makes deadlines unpredictable. You can get lit up by something you do not understand. I have seen it. It is not a joke.
That is the first time I hear someone say out loud what I have been thinking. The storm is not just a one-time hit. It is changing the behavior of the environment enough that normal safety assumptions break. Then, late afternoon, the gate alarm I made with washers jingles once. Soft. Then again, harder. Someone is pushing the gate. I freeze, listening. Boots on gravel. 2 voices, then a third. They are close. They are right outside. I do not shout. Shouting invites negotiation. Negotiation invites time. Time invites them to decide they can win. I move to the corner where I can see through a crack in the door frame without being seen. 3 men. One has a backpack. One has a pry bar. One has a cheap flashlight. They are looking at the padlock and chain. The one with the pry bar leans in and tests it. The chain holds. He looks annoyed. They start scanning the fence line, looking for the weak spot. I am breathing slow. Not for calm, for silence. I slide the 12 gauge up and I aim it down toward the floor, not at them yet. I am not looking for a fight, but I am not giving up the solar panels either. If they destroy them, I am done. If they take them, I am done. If they take the batteries, everyone listening to me loses one of the few working relays in this area. I think about calling Lena. I think about keying up and asking for law enforcement. Then I remember she is one deputy moving between wrecks, fires, and chaos with no dispatch. Even if she heard me, she might be 30 minutes away or 3 hours away. And bringing a patrol car here might just bring more attention. So I make a decision that feels wrong, but might work. I use the loudest tool I have that does not involve firing. I grab a can of compressed air I keep for cleaning fiber connectors. I shake it, step back from the door, and I slam it hard against the metal rack so it makes a sharp bang. Then I do it again. Then I flick the overhead emergency light switch, not to leave it on, just to flash the inside glow through a tiny gap. A quick signal, occupied, alert, not asleep. Outside, the men freeze. They turn toward the building. The flashlight beam sweeps. One of them laughs, nervous. They talk fast. I cannot hear words, just tone. Then the one with the backpack steps forward and kicks the gate once, hard, just to make a point. Then they move along the fence toward the bowed section. They found the weak point. Of course they did. I move inside fast. I do not run. Running is loud and sloppy. I move with purpose to the rack where the emergency disconnect is. I flip off the external power feed to non-essential equipment again, dropping load further. Then I grab a small fire extinguisher from the wall. Not because I expect fire, because it is a blunt tool if you have to push someone back without lethal force, and it can blind. The fence rattles, metal flexes. They are climbing. I step to the door, still closed, and I speak through it in a low voice, controlled. I tell them this is a critical power site. I tell them there is nothing here worth dying for. I tell them I am armed. I tell them if they damage the solar, they will not get anything because I will destroy the inverter before I let them take it. That last part is a bluff. I could not destroy it fast, but the idea might deter them. They answer with laughter and profanity. They do not sound deterred. They sound hungry. Then something changes. Another sound joins the scene, not from them, from the road. An engine. A vehicle approaching fast. Headlights swing across the fence, and a voice shouts from outside, female, hard, and commanding. It is Lena. I know it because I have heard her voice enough now that it is a real person in my head.
Get off the fence. Get away from the gate. You do not know what you are climbing into, and you are not stealing from a store. You are breaking into infrastructure. Step back now.
I do not know why she is here. Maybe she followed the rumor of a powered building. Maybe she was patrolling this service road. Maybe she heard my earlier transmissions and drove out here when her shift allowed it. Whatever the reason, her timing is perfect. The men hesitate. One drops back to the ground. One stays on the fence for a second too long, then jumps down. The one with the pry bar lifts it halfway, then lowers it, calculating. Lena's patrol vehicle door slams. I hear her boots on gravel. I hear her voice again, closer, and I hear the tone that says she is not negotiating.
You walk away right now. You get in your vehicle and you leave. I am not chasing you. I am not booking you. I am not giving you a ride. I am giving you one clean exit.
They take it. They back off, still talking. The flashlight swings once more, then disappears. A car door slams somewhere, then an engine revs and fades away. I stay still for a full minute because adrenaline makes you do stupid moves. I listen for return footsteps. Nothing. Then I crack the door, and I see Lena standing outside the gate, one hand resting on her belt, her posture squared. She looks exhausted. Dust on her uniform. Hair pulled back tight. Her face is set in that expression people get when they have been holding the line for too long. I open the gate from inside and I let her in fast. Then I lock it again behind her. We do not hug. We do not do any of that. This is not that kind of moment. This is a practical meeting between two tired people who both know the world is unstable. Lena tells me she tracked activity because a group had been hitting utility sites for solar panels. She says they are not just desperate families. They are organized enough to move from site to site, looking for anything that charges. She says someone burned a small cell tower shelter earlier, trying to pull batteries out without knowing what they were doing. She says the fire spread into brush, and now that area is a mess. She asks me how long my batteries can last. I show her the inverter display. I explain what load means. I explain solar charge curve. I explain that if panels get damaged, the whole plan collapses. She listens. She is not pretending to understand everything. She is absorbing enough to make decisions. That is rare. Then she says the thing I was afraid she would say. She says, people are going to find this place again. We need to move your operation or harden it. Moving is almost impossible. The switching station is the power source. If I leave, I become a guy with a radio and no battery. Hardening means attention. Attention means more attacks. It is a trap. So I propose a third option. Quiet deception. I tell her I can make this place look dead from the outside. I can remove the solar panels visually by covering them with dusty tarp and scrap, make them look broken. I can kill all light leaks. I can reduce transmit schedule further and move my antenna to a disguised location so people cannot triangulate easily. I can also set up a decoy battery box outside the fence with junk wiring so thieves waste time. Lena nods. She says she can do something too. She can log this site as checked, no resources on paper notes shared with other deputies. She can warn a few trusted volunteers in the area who are doing traffic control not to spread word about power here. She can swing by when she can, but she cannot guard it. She says that plain. Before she leaves, she asks for one thing. Water. She is running out. Her patrol car has a few bottles left. I give her 2 from my stash. It hurts to do it, but I do it because she just saved my life and because a functioning deputy is a net positive for everyone. She leaves fast. No drama, just a nod and back into the dust. That night I work. I move under moonlight, minimal flashlight, covering the solar panels with a tarp that I dirty with dust, and streak with grease from a rag so it looks old. I do not cover them fully because I still need charge. I cover them enough that from the road they look like discarded junk, not shiny panels. I move my antenna. I run a longer coax line to a spot behind a scrubby mesquite near the fence line. Then I attach the antenna low, disguised in branches. It reduces performance, but it also reduces visibility. I would rather be heard imperfectly than be found easily. The next day brings a new wave of catastrophe. The water pressure in my area drops. I know because I do a test run to a nearby spigot at a roadside facility I remembered, and it sputters. Air, and a weak spit of water, then nothing. That tells me the municipal system is failing in sections. Pumps need power, backup generators need fuel, fuel distribution is broken. It is a chain. I come back to the station with nothing on, and I sit on the floor, and I stare at my remaining water. I do the math. At my current ration, I have maybe 2 days before it becomes dangerous. That is the first time I consider leaving the station permanently. Not because I want to, because staying might be slow death. I tell myself to challenge that thought. I ask, what options exist before abandoning the one power source I have? Option 1, find water closer, maybe from a pool supply store, a bottled water cache, a commercial building with rooftop tank, a water tower tap point. Option 2, trade. Option 3, coordinate with Maya or Lena to identify a safe resupply corridor. Maya answers my call for water info. She says something important. The hospital has a limited water reserve. They are using it for critical care. They cannot spare much, but she says they found a working well at a fire station in a specific zone, running off a small generator. She refuses to give the exact station on open air. She says she will describe it in a coded way, landmarks only, and only to someone who can prove they are not going to bring a mob. That is a trust test. I do not love trust tests, but I understand why she is doing it. People are already attacking resource points. If that fire station becomes known, it gets swarmed, the generator gets stolen, and then the well is useless. So I do what I can. I describe my switching station, my job, details that a fake caller would not know. I describe the inside layout in a way that proves I am real. I tell her I am one person, not a group. I tell her I can bring charged batteries if they need them. I tell her I have no interest in leading people there. I just need water so I can keep this relay alive. She pauses, then she gives me landmarks. A freeway exit, a billboard that used to advertise a casino, a row of tall palms near a low building with bays. She says approach from the south, avoid the main road because there have been fights at the intersection. She says go early morning when it is cooler and less crowded. She says if I see a crowd, abort. That is my next mission. Water, carefully, without lighting myself up as a walking power source. Before dawn, I pack. Empty jugs from the station kit, a clean bucket, a small filter straw I keep for hiking, and a few chlorine tablets I had in my van because I camp. I also pack a spare radio battery and a couple flashlights. I leave the station on reduced load. I double lock the door. I set my washer string. I leave another note. Gone for water, back soon. That note is for me, to stop me from spiraling into worst-case thoughts if I return and find signs of entry. The drive at dawn is different, cooler, less heat shimmer, more smoke haze hanging low. The roads are not empty, but they are quieter. People have adjusted to the absence of signals and lights. They move slower. They stop at intersections and wave each other through with stiff gestures. I see a group of teenagers pushing a car, trying to get it started by rolling. I see a man on a bicycle with a backpack and a rifle slung awkwardly, watching every passing vehicle. I reach the area Maya described. I see the palms. I see the bays. It is a fire station. The doors are partly open and there is a generator running outside, loud in the morning quiet. That sound is both relief and danger. It announces we have power. There is a line. Not a mob, but a line of people with containers. Some look calm, some look desperate. 2 firefighters in dusty uniforms are controlling the flow. One holds a clipboard and writes names, old school. Another is standing with a shotgun held low, not pointed, just present. They are not threatening people. They are preventing collapse of the line. I park away from the station, out of sight as much as possible. I take my containers and I join the line. I keep my mouth shut. I do not mention my switching station. I do not mention solar. I'm just another person with empty jugs. A woman behind me starts talking. She says her phone died on day 1. She says her kid keeps asking what time it is and she cannot answer. She says her husband went to look for fuel and has not come back. She says she is afraid to leave her house, but the water is out. She keeps talking, not because I asked, because silence is unbearable for her. I nod and keep my eyes forward. When I reach the front, a firefighter asks my name. I give it. He asks how many people in my household. I hesitate, then I say 1. He looks at me hard. He says, 1 means you get less, because families are dying out here. I do not argue. I say I understand. He gives me a measured amount, not enough for comfort, enough for function. He also tells me something quietly. He says the generator is running on a finite fuel tank and they have no idea when they will get more. He says they are trying to keep water flowing as long as possible. But if the fuel runs out, the well pump stops. I offer him something. Not money. Money is paper now. I offer him charged batteries. I tell him I can bring them, but I do not say where from. He says yes if I can. He says radios are dying and flashlights are dying. He says they are trying to coordinate with other stations using handhelds with weak batteries. I nod and I leave. On the way back to the van, I hear shouting. Not at me, off to the side of the station. A man trying to cut the line, people yelling at him. The shotgun firefighter steps in, calm but firm, pushing him back with a hand gesture and the voice. The man backs off, still yelling. No shots, no violence. But the tension is right there, one bad moment away. I load the water into the van and I drive back fast, not reckless but direct. I do not stop. I do not help. That sounds awful when I say it. But I am carrying a resource, and stopping makes me vulnerable. It also makes the resource vulnerable. Halfway back, I hit my first real roadblock. A major intersection clogged with stopped cars, not a normal jam, a pileup. 2 vehicles nose to nose and a third at an angle. People standing around arguing. A child screaming. A dog loose in the street. No police. No tow, just a knot in the road. I could wait. Waiting burns fuel and time and increases the chance someone notices my loaded van and decides to take it. So I take a side street and cut through a residential block. I go slow. I do not want to hit someone. People are walking in the street because sidewalks are empty and the street feels safer without traffic. As I drive, I see a house, with the front door open and a couch pulled out onto the lawn. Someone has set up a shade tarp, and they are sitting outside because inside is too hot. I see another house, with blackened windows and smoke stains above the garage. A small fire, already burned out. No response came. It burned until it ran out of fuel. That is the new pattern. Fire burns, then stops when it has eaten what it can. When I finally reach the switching station, I feel a wave of relief. Then I see the fence. The cans I placed are knocked over. The gravel is disturbed. Someone was here. Maybe they did not breach. Maybe they just scoped. The washer string is still hanging but twisted. The gate was touched. I do not rush in. I circle the fence line first. I check the bowed section. It is worse. The ties are pulled more. Someone tried to widen it. I go inside and I check the racks. Nothing is stolen. The inverter is still on. The batteries are still there. The solar is still charging. They did not get in, not yet. I pour some of my water into the station's containers and I stash the rest in the van, hidden under a tarp and tool bags. I keep some inside the building, some in the van, split storage in case one gets hit. That is another hard lesson. Never keep everything in one place. I key up and I tell listeners something real. There is a working well at a fire station somewhere in the valley, but I do not give location. I tell people to look for official distribution points, to avoid mobs, to bring containers, to arrive early, and to respect controlled lines. I also tell people that attacking infrastructure sites for solar panels will make the outage longer and will cause more deaths. I say it without fluff. Then I follow through on my trade offer. I charge every spare battery I have and I plan a quick delivery run to the fire station the next morning. Not because I want to be generous, because if that fire station keeps pumping water, it stabilizes a small zone. Stabilized zones reduce desperate wandering. Desperate wandering reduces the chance my station gets hit by random scavengers. This is selfish and communal at the same time. That is how survival works now. That night, the weird static voices return, and this time it is stronger, longer. A structured sequence. It repeats twice. Cole hears it too, and he says it sounds like a data burst. Maybe a digital mode. Lena comes on briefly and says she has heard similar things on law channels, chopped and wrong, and she thinks it is signal reflection and interference. Maya says someone at the hospital heard it and started crying because they thought it was a sign of the end. I say something firm on air. I tell people to stop assigning meaning to the static. If you need meaning, make it through action. Fill water. Check neighbors. Keep someone on fire. Watch at night. Turn off gas if you smell leaks. That kind of meaning. The next morning, I deliver batteries to the fire station. The firefighters accept them with a quiet gratitude that makes my throat tighten. They do not make a speech. They just say thank you. And one of them tells me they managed to contact another station 2 towns over because a handheld finally held charge long enough to transmit. That is a tiny victory, but tiny victories stack. On my way back, I pass a neighborhood where people have set up an informal checkpoint. 2 pickup trucks parked across the street, leaving a narrow gap. A couple men with reflective vests and baseball bats. A woman with a clipboard. They are not thieves. They are trying to keep random traffic from cruising through and casing houses. They wave me through after a brief look. They ask if I have water. I say yes, barely, and I keep moving. Back at the switching station, the batteries are lower than I like again, but stable. Solar is still working. The tarp disguise seems to help. From the road, it looks like junk. Then in the afternoon, I hear something that changes the tone of everything. A distant, sustained rumble. It is not fire. It is not aircraft. It is a series of pops and cracks in sequence. It reminds me of a line of transformers blowing one after another. Cole comes on and confirms it. He says a major transmission corridor tripped, and when it tried to reclose, it faulted again. He says that kind of repeated fault can destroy equipment fast. He says crews are trying to isolate sections, but without centralized control, it is messy. He says this might be the storm's second punch, another wave. That is the moment I stop thinking of this as recovery. This is ongoing attack from the sun, and the grid is a wounded animal being hit again while it is still down. Maya tells me the hospital just lost power again completely. Generator dead. They are running on limited battery backup for critical rooms. She says they are moving patients by hand. She says they are using flashlights taped to IV poles. She says staff are being told to go home if they can because the hospital cannot guarantee safety if crowds break through. Lena tells me there are fires spreading along a new corridor, and some neighborhoods are doing self-evacuations, not organized, just people piling into cars and clogging roads. She says she is trying to prevent another rumor wave, but fear moves faster than a deputy can drive. I sit in my switching station and I realize something ugly. My little relay might become more important as formal communications collapse further. That makes me a target again. So I make the biggest decision yet. I stop being stationary. I cannot abandon the power, but I can split my operation. I can leave the switching station running silent, charging battery packs, while I move my actual broadcast point to a secondary location for a few hours at a time. I have portable batteries now, charged. I can transmit from different spots so it is harder to find the source. It is riskier because I'm exposed in the field, but it reduces the chance someone tracks me back to the station. That evening, I take a charged battery pack, my transceiver, and I drive to a low-hill area near Usery Mountain Regional Park where there are fewer people and a clearer line of sight. I park off a dirt pullout, keep headlights off, and I transmit updates. I tell listeners I am mobile. I tell them the station is still alive, but I am not broadcasting from it constantly. I tell them to conserve their own batteries and to use scheduled listening. From that hill, I can see more of the valley. Smoke columns scattered. One large glow in the west, another in the north. The city looks wounded from a distance, not destroyed. just punctured in multiple places. While I'm on that hill, Mark comes on again, and his voice is different. He is not in a plane, now. He says he is helping coordinate stranded passengers at the field and that there was a crash earlier, not his. Another aircraft that attempted an emergency landing and overshot because the runway surface was littered and braking was compromised. He does not give details. He just says there are casualties, and that the emergency response was mostly civilians with flashlights and pickup trucks.
I want to say something for anyone listening who thinks airplanes falling means the world is over. It means the system we built is fragile, without power and timing. Aviation depends on a huge invisible machine on the ground. You pull power and communication, and the sky becomes dangerous fast. That does not mean the sky is evil. It means we relied on stability, and stability got hit. If you are near an airfield, stay away from the runway. Do not go sightseeing. People are getting hurt because they treat this as a spectacle.
That spectacle point matters. People gather around disasters to watch. In this situation, watching gets you killed and it blocks response. I return to the switching station before midnight using back roads. I check the fence. No new disturbance. The disguise might be working, or the thieves moved on to easier targets, or they are watching and waiting. I sleep in the building this time, on the floor, because the van feels too exposed. I wedge a chair under the door handle. It is not a lock. It is noise if the door moves. In the early morning hours, I wake to a sound that is not human, not a voice, not static. It is the inverter alarm. A high-pitched beep. The display is flashing fault again. This time it does not recover fast. It cycles off, on, off. My hands move on autopilot. I shut down load. I isolate circuits. I check battery voltage. It is low, but not dead. The inverter is overheating. The cabinet temperature is too high even in early morning because the fan vent might be clogged with dust. I pop the cabinet and a wave of warm air hits my face. I take a brush and I clean the vent screens. I use compressed air carefully, not blasting dust into sensitive boards. I point a small portable fan at the cabinet running off a separate battery pack. That is a trade. I spend battery to save the inverter. If the inverter dies, everything dies. The alarm stops. The display stabilizes. The system is alive. Barely. That is the moment I accept that my lifeboat is not guaranteed. It is a machine under stress, in heat, in a disturbed environment. I cannot just camp here. I have to maintain it constantly. I get on the air at first light and I tell listeners the station almost failed. I tell them I am reducing broadcast further to preserve power and to keep the inverter cool. I tell them my schedule. I tell them if they need to reach someone, do it during those windows. Some people will hate that. Some will understand. I am not doing this for approval. I am doing it because dead silence forever helps nobody. Controlled limited signal helps some. Over the next day, the catastrophes keep layering. Heat illness reports, fires, fuel fights, water pressure failures. I cannot verify everything, but I can hear enough consistent patterns to trust the broad reality. The biggest catastrophe is not one explosion. It is the slow collapse of normal distribution. Food rots because refrigeration dies. Medicine expires because supply chains are frozen. People with chronic conditions run out of what keeps them alive. Maya says they lost a patient not to trauma, not to fire, but to a lack of a specific medication that would have been routine a week ago. She does not say more. Her voice cracks for half a second, then she keeps talking because she has to. Lena says her department is now prioritizing only life-threatening calls because everything else is too much. She says burglary reports are being told to write it down and survive. She says some deputies quit and went home to protect their own families. She does not blame them. She just states it. Cole says crews are exhausted and some are refusing to climb because induced voltages are unpredictable and because without proper coordination, safety is compromised. He says no worker should die trying to restore power for a public that might lynch them for not being fast enough. He says that harshly. He has earned the right. And through all of it, those strange bursts in the static keep coming, and people keep wanting them to be a message. I keep pushing back, not because I'm trying to crush hope, but because hope built on nonsense collapses fast. Hope built on water and shade and community lasts longer. I am still here, still managing this small island of power, still talking when I can, still hearing other humans proving they exist through their voices. That might sound small, but in a world where clocks disagree and networks are dead, a voice is proof of life.